This is the Troll Patrol, live with JustinFREAKIN.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol live. It's a freaking Friday. The freak show tonight is the Wisconsin Senate debate. Coming at you in about 10 minutes. Republican hardcore MAGA Eric Hovde taking on the Democratic incumbent Tammy Baldwin. This is moments away. Warlord, Meat Cakes, good evening. Clinically. So glad to have everyone. There's a lot of news going on. Normally I'm not on a Friday night, or we're doing a freak show, or we're watching TGIF on Twitch or some shit. Fox, has there been, this is the only debate tonight, isn't it? I don't think they've already had a debate in Wisconsin. I'm not familiar with Hovde. Anonymously. But that doesn't mean that we didn't miss one. But I think tonight's the only debate in Wisconsin. If I'm not mistaken. I don't think I've ever heard Hovde speak unless he was at the convention. And now that I think about it, I think he was. He looks like Randy Jackson, the baseball player. Holiday, good evening. Mox, I didn't tell you good evening. Welcome in, everyone. Anonymously, I'm glad to cover the Senate race in your state. I hope I've covered the races that matter to you guys. Throughout this election season, we've got several more to go. Now, Soup, good evening. I have not, I may have mentioned it in passing, but I've not said it outright. I'm moving, guys. I'm moving. I start the moving process tomorrow. I am taking the kiddies to the new apartment tomorrow. But here's the thing, is I am not, hopefully, I am not missing any shows. That I will be back for the show tomorrow night. We will be here all week. We will do all the debates this week. And then when you see me next Sunday, I will be at the new apartment set up, already rolling, and we're moving on to election week. So this should not be like any of the other times I've moved, and it's been a blank space for a couple of weeks. I think I have everything set, ready. We are going to be without interruption to the Troll Patrol coverage here in this election season. So I will see you guys on Thursday night. Wave goodbye. When we come on Sunday, I'll be in a different apartment. That's how that's going to work. But I started the move this weekend. Not dreading the move, but dreading being without my kitties for a few days. That really makes me sad. Trump too exhausted to do interviews with unfriendly outlets. And just like that, the Adderall shortage is back in the news. Flash, good evening. Flash been up in North Carolina doing God's work. We gave you a shout out the other night. I'm assuming you've been too busy to hop in for any of our debates. Fucking Ted Cruz was a wild one. Hopefully we're going to have a wild one here in about 5 minutes. Also, the news doing a lot of fucking crazy shit. So we're going to try to cover a little bit of the news. I've also got multiple car chases for you. I don't know how many we're going to watch, but jam-packed show once again tonight. Since you're not getting a freak show, we are about 5 minutes away. 7 o'clock Wisconsin time for the Wisconsin Senate debate. Tammy Baldwin, the Democratic incumbent. Eric Hovde, the Republican nominee. Let's see if let me see if I can find a little preview or something from one of the local Wisconsin stations. Hovde is such a weird name. Trump currently campaigning in Detroit. Obama in Tucson, Arizona. Thought it said Tuscaloosa. I was like, no, that's not right. Obama is not campaigning in Alabama for Kamala Harris. That would be a waste of resources.
Tonight, Democratic U.S. Senator Tammy Baldwin will face off against her Republican challenger, Eric Hovde, in a debate. That debate is expected to last about an hour or so, where both candidates will field some questions from the moderators.
Have I been saying his name wrong? Hovde? I've been saying Hovde.
27's Kodichi Lawrence has been following this story for us all morning long. She brings us the latest.
It will all be happening tonight. Both candidates will field questions from moderators, and likely this will be the only time they face each other in a debate before a general election, which is in less than 3 weeks. Some of the key issues Tammy Baldwin's campaign has focused on are women's reproductive freedom, health care, and Wisconsin's fight against the opioid epidemic. Her Republican challenger, Eric Hovde, has also focused on health care, cost of living, and immigration.
Oh, yeah, he did speak at the convention.
Mike Wagner says generally candidates answer questions directly when it's beneficial to them.
Part of what we'll see in the debate is candidates trying to maximize answers they think appeal to the widest range of voters.
He also says one party's strength could be the other's weakness or strength, depending on how voters look at it.
I think Baldwin has a huge advantage on reproductive rights and also has an advantage on being the known quantity, and so she can talk about her record of accomplishment. Hovde has the advantage of being the new person in town, and also running, with a party that tends to frame their candidates as more political outsiders.
While it is still a tight race, Wagner says it will be interesting to see how both parties treat each other on stage.
It's been a fairly nasty and negative race on the airwaves, and so it's always interesting to see how folks behave when they are next to each other. Baldwin's ads have characterized Hovde negatively and kind of as a weirdo in some ways. What is it with this guy kind of ads? And Hovde's ads have impugned the integrity of both Baldwin and her wife.
The rules and the format of the debate has not been released yet, but we will keep a close eye and bring you the information when we have them available. Reporting in Madison, Kodichi Lawrence, 27 News.
Thank you, Kodichi. So, minutes away from the Baldwin Hovde debate. Hovde. We are going to cover the redacted evidence released in the January 6th case against Donald Trump. We're going to watch a police chase. Got all kinds of stuff going on in the news. Here's Obama.
And
currently in Tucson.
Michelle was one of those people. She's still trying to make me a little bit better. But it wasn't just Michelle. It was also friends and coworkers and neighbors. And even political opponents, people on the other side of the aisle. And I already mentioned it before, being here in Tucson, I'm thinking about my friend John McCain.
Old Johnny boy.
I don't want to over-romanticize our relationship, and John was conservative, to put it mildly. Ran against me in 2008. Talked about me on the campaign trail. But you know what? He understood that some values transcend party. He believed in honest argument and hearing the views of other people. He didn't demonize his political opponents. You remember the time at the end of the campaign when a woman at one of his rallies said, Obama,
Obama.
He's not even a citizen, and she started going on a rant, and he said, ma'am, hold on a second. I have a lot of disagreement.
I totally remember that, Obama.
Senator Obama, but I serve with him. He's a good man. He's an honorable man.
Now, I remember McCain said he's not a Muslim, as if being a Muslim was a bad thing. It was kind of a faux pas on McCain's part, but you don't want to bring that up, do you now, Obama? Moxes may not come as a shock to you. I've talked about how I was president of the Young Republicans in high school. I was a hardcore campaigner for John McCain in 2000. I would have been 17. Had a giant picture of John McCain up on my wall. I don't know. 2000's John McCain was different than, like, the George W. Bush administration broke that motherfucker's brain. So once again, we are going to take the U.S. Senate debate between Eric Hovde and Tammy Baldwin in minutes whenever they get started. We are waiting for the live stream to begin on WMTV. WMTV. Seems to be the call letters. Here we go.
They have agreed. For all questions from our time they have for a response, it'll usually be 60 seconds. We all see countdown clocks, and when candidates hit their time limit, I will remind them, and if they continue, their microphone will cease to function. As moderator, I also have the option to note when a candidate hasn't actually
Avalon, good evening.
They were asked, and I'll give them 30 seconds to do so. And to be fair, their opponent will also then get an additional 30 seconds to respond. Now, we are providing another important service to this debate thanks to our data team. Many complex issues require deeper context and verification from reliable sources. Now, we have that for you. After each question, our data team will post links to resources on our WBA debate website. I'll remind you throughout the debate, and a QR code and a link will direct you there. Now, please note, we are addressing the candidates using the titles they have requested. The order of response for the first question and the last question was determined by a coin toss. So with that, let us begin with the first question. It comes from Allison Fergit of WKBT in La Crosse.
Forget about it.
By discussing the economy, specifically pocketbook issues. The stock market today closed at an all-time high. Employment in Wisconsin is at a record high, and inflation has slowed. Yet we know many people still feel that the cost of many things is still too high. So we're going to ask about the variety of...
Why are they sitting like that? It's like the outcast table at a wedding.
Healthcare. More than 250,000 Wisconsinites rely on the Affordable Care Act for their health insurance. The most recent polling shows that 62%...
Hubsy's got a shit-eating grin. I'm not high enough for this shit.
You said we need to move beyond the ACA. Meanwhile, Senator Baldwin, you've said we need to preserve it. If anything, what would you change about the Affordable Care Act? You each will have 60 seconds to respond, and by the coin flip, Mr. Hovde, you will go first.
Well, thank you, and thank you everybody for joining tonight. It's wonderful, and Jill for hosting, and for the journalists being here, and it's finally nice.
With a mustache like that, you would expect a little more bass to his voice.
The Affordable Care Act made 3 promises. Promise number 1, it would slow down the cost of health care. Promise number 2, it would increase the access to health care. And promise number 3, that you would be able to keep your family doctor. But I'm a believer in results. And if you look at the results, every one of those promises has failed. Costs of health care have only skyrocketed higher. Access to care has declined, and declined significantly, particularly for a lot of people in our rural communities. And lastly, the family doctor has all but disappeared. The only thing that is meaningful was the pre-existing conditions. Look, I have multiple sclerosis, so I understand the importance of that, but we need a significant restructuring of our health care system.
Thank you, Mr. Hovde. Senator?
Well, I went throughout my youth without health insurance because of a pre-existing condition, and I grew up believing that was wrong. I had the honor of serving on a panel when I was in the House of Representatives that wrote the Affordable Care Act. And it was my provision that allowed young people to stay on their parents' health insurance till they turned 26. Sadly, my opponent, Eric Hovde, called that particular provision stupid and has agreed, or as you hear, has said that he would overturn the Affordable Care Act in its entirety, including my provision that allows young people to stay on their parents' health insurance. He also opposes efforts to negotiate with the big pharmaceutical companies to lower the price of prescription drugs, saving patients and Medicare money. We need to build upon the Affordable Care Act, and we need to build upon our efforts to negotiate lower prescription drug prices.
Thank you. We're going to stay with the cost of health care, going to prescription drugs. And the question is going to come from Aditi Debnath of PBS Wisconsin.
The cost of insulin has been reduced and capped at $35 for many Americans. And beginning in 2026, a number of other widely prescribed drugs will have their co-payments decreased under Medicare. Yet many believe more needs to be done. What would you do as a U.S. Senator to reduce the cost of prescription drugs for Wisconsinites?
Well, I would certainly continue and speed up our negotiations with the big pharmaceutical companies. You hear of people regularly going to Canada and other places to get less expensive drugs. Why is that? Because those countries negotiate on behalf of their citizens. Until recently, the big pharmaceutical companies had a sweetheart deal that prevented those negotiations. But 2 years ago, we passed a bill to get those started. Sadly, my opponent would have voted against that measure. He's said that many times. We are seeing real reductions in prices that will save both patients money, but will also extend the solvency of Medicare. We're also seeing victories like my own earlier this year when I forced the asthma inhaler manufacturers to lower their prices to no more than $35 per month out of pocket.
Mr. Hovde, your response.
I can't believe what I just heard. I mean, it's one lie after another. I believe we need to negotiate with Big Pharma. I think our drug prices are too high. When I first started taking my medications for MS, they cost about $6,000 a year. Now they're costing $35,000 for generic drug prices. I'm the one who's against Big Pharma. It's your Wall Street partner who invests in Big Pharma. You oversee it. You take massive amounts of money from Big Pharma. Your whole campaign is funded by Wall Street, Big Pharma, and Big Tech. That's how you launch all your attack ads against me. So I can't even believe you'd say that I don't want to negotiate against Big Pharma on drug prices. I think drug prices are wildly too high. And I'll actually do something about it because I'm not taking Big Pharma's money. I'm not taking special interest money like Senator Baldwin. In fact, her partner is making money off of it and doesn't even disclose the profit she's making.
We're going to move on to childcare, and I do want to tell both of you one thing, and that is at the end we have a final question.
Well,
as you respond to anything that you have heard tonight that you would like to challenge, okay, and that will be in our final.
she should get a response.
Not right now.
She was personally attacked.
And the question on childcare costs is going to come from Jeff Talon at WSAW in Wausau.
A typical Wisconsin family with an infant and a 4-year-old spends about 1/3 of their income on child care. And some even have a hard time finding that child care because of a lack of workers. Wisconsin's median wage for child care workers is $13.78 an hour. How would you support child care providers and reduce child care costs through your policies? This is a 60-second response, with Mr. Hovde going first.
Look, this is a big problem in our country, and I know this all too well because my wife was a single mother, and I saw the struggles she had providing for child care, and that was over 30 years ago, and it's only gotten worse. Look, in my companies, I'm known as a family-friendly employer, and we go out of our way to create greater flexibility for our employees who just had a child or have young children. As I always like to say, if you have a need or a special event, you go and be at those events. I think we need to create a partnership with business and government, whether it's tax credits directly to the individual or tax credits to a business, to help this issue, because it is a very serious issue that we know very personally in our family when my wife was a single mom.
Senator Baldwin.
So we have a child care crisis in this country. Child care really struggled during the pandemic. Many daycare centers closed. Many family group settings closed during the pandemic. But we also know this is an area where the free market just doesn't work. The workers get far too little pay, and tuition is just out of reach of so many people. You know, it costs almost as much to send your child to childcare as it does tuition at a UW school. That's outrageous. You have only 9 months to plan for childcare expenses. You have 18 years to plan for college expenses. But I want to tell you about the Hovde plan. He's announced a plan very recently that would reduce federal spending back to levels of the last decade. While I've been fighting to increase the child care development block grant by $1 billion last year, and the proposal is $2 billion this year,
Thank you,
the
Senator.
Hovde plan would slash
Thank you, Senator.
that
Your time
progress.
is up. Let's move now to Social Security, and that's Shannon Sims of TMJ4 Milwaukee.
Americans want to know that Social Security will be there when they retire. However, according to the Social Security Administration, if Congress does not act before 2035, benefits will be reduced to nearly 20%. But there is something that Congress can do.
I don't like this format because they're not
You will have 60
following
seconds
up.
to respond. Senator Baldwin, you go
And
first.
Hovde is breathing really heavy
Extend
into his
the
mic.
solvency of Social Security very easily. It's called lifting the income cap. Right now, multimillionaires like my opponent Eric Hovde pay minute amounts. They're not doing their fair share. And if we lifted that income cap, the solvency would be extended for many years. But let me tell you about something even more troubling. The Hovde plan that reverts and resets spending levels to levels from the last decade would cut Social Security by 28%, an average of $500 per month. That's $6,000 per year. Talk about, you know, when people need money in their pockets. And why is he supporting the Hovde plan? Because he supports a $4 trillion tax giveaway to the very wealthy and big corporations. And he supports spending, just not for you.
Mr. Hovde?
I assume he
Man,
supports the Hovde plan because it's his plan.
Is your ability to lie.
It's in the name.
I can't even believe you have the ability to stand here and say something like that. Look, I believe we need to protect Social Security and keep it sacrosanct for everybody who's on Social Security or getting ready to retire. If you want to know why Social Security is in trouble, it's real simple. Because we've taken federal debt from, well, Senator Baldwin has been in office, from $5.5 billion to $5.5 trillion to $36 trillion. That's why CBO has it projected to go cash flow negative in 8.5 years. So if we would have kept Social Security in a trust and not pilfered from it like you have for the last 26 years as a politician, Social Security would be in much better place. So we have to look at things for Social Security, like for those younger people, because life expectancy is going up, to make adjustments for that.
So to that point,
How do they think Social Security works?
Seniors, and we're going to talk about long-term care. And that's Neil Johnson of Big Radio in Janesville.
Wisconsin is facing a serious shortage of qualified caretakers to work in nursing homes and other long-term care settings, such as in-home health care and assisted living. One study says Wisconsin will need an additional 10,000 healthcare workers over the next decade, and that's for senior care alone. Do you feel the federal government should be addressing this need? And if so, how?
Mr. Hovde, you're first.
Oh, thank you. Look, it is a very serious problem. And look, I'm the youngest year of the baby boom generation, 60. The oldest year was born in 1946. And we're going to have a lot of people hitting retirement age. Look, the problem is we have a lot of people out of the workforce today, and we got to get more people back into the workforce. And that's an important part. A lot of nursing home owners, and I've known a few, are struggling with the massive amounts of regulations that they're also dealing with, which Senator Baldwin and politicians have continued to heap on them. So we have to take a private sector approach to try to drive more employment into that sector. And yes, that will cause a rise in wages, which would be good for those people, because being a nursing home worker is a difficult job.
Senator Baldwin?
Yes. We need to focus on the workforce. And we need to have multiple pathways to get a great paying job caring for our seniors. I believe in apprenticeships. I believe in the programs that are starting nursing programs in high school and then creating a debt-free path to getting a higher degree. There's a lot we can do, and there's a lot that has already been advanced in the Congress to do just that. But I have to say, when we're talking about seniors, we have to respect our seniors. I was raised by my grandparents, and it made me aware of the meaningful difference that programs like Social Security and Medicare made in our lives. My grandmother broke her hip at age 90 and actually voted for me for Congress from her nursing room. Eric Hovde has said that people in nursing homes are at no point to vote.
Okay, that is, time is up, and we're going to move on. And we're going to talk about reproductive rights. And that question comes from Allison.
A Marquette Law School poll released Wednesday found that 61% of those polled across the country opposed the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade, spurring some lawmakers to want to codify or put into law the provisions of Roe. Roe establishes the right to an abortion, but also sets some limits and includes some exceptions. What is your position on once again making Roe the law of the land? Senator Baldwin, you will respond first. You have 60 seconds.
Well, a woman's rights and freedoms should not depend upon her zip code or state. In the state of Wisconsin, where we have a criminal abortion ban that was passed in the year 1849, we have services accessible in 3 out of our 72 counties. That means 69 counties there is no access. And harrowing things are happening to women.
Not nice.
I've talked to women who face the risk of sepsis and near death before that they could get the services that they needed. That's why I'm so proud to lead the Women's Health Protection Act, which would restore Roe nationwide. My opponent has said that he is 100% opposed to abortion rights. I'm trying to lead the way to restore Roe so that we don't see prosecution of women who have miscarried or doctors who are providing health care. Women are dying because of the current situation.
Mr. Hovde.
Wow. Look, it's been brought back to our state. I think we as a state should resolve this in a common sense and compassionate approach. I believe in the beauty of life. I've had 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren. And I agree with exceptions for rape, incest, and the health of the mother. And I think women should have a right to decide early on in their pregnancy. Senator Baldwin, you have passed or pushed to allow abortion to happen up to the point of delivery, where a healthy baby can be born alive and be terminated.
Chop its head off.
That is unconscionable.
Oh, sorry.
You're shaking your head, but please give, what month would you stop? Is it the 8th month? It's the 9th? Is it the 9th month? And you run these ads saying I'm against, for a national abortion ban. I am not for a national abortion ban. I never have been. And when she talks about my comment from 14 years ago, yeah, my daughters were young. And then they grew
Mr.
up
Hovde, your
to
time
their
is up on this
teenage
question.
years and 20s.
Mr. Hovde, your time is up, but I'm going to exercise the moderator's option to redirect you to the question that was asked, which is specifically about the recodifying of the Affordable Care Act. I'm sorry, the Affordable Care Act of Roe. And information about that is on our data page. But I'm going to ask you to respond to that question about the recodification, making it the law of the land, and then you will get 30 seconds to respond, Senator Baldwin.
I think I did. I said it's come back to the state, and I think we as a state should resolve this issue with a referendum where everybody gets a right to vote. The voters get a right to vote. I get a right to vote. I clarified where my position is, and that is I believe that women should have a right to choose early on in their pregnancy, but there comes a point in time where a baby can be born healthy and alive, and I thinks it's unconscionable to terminate that child's life.
That's a no on Roe.
Eric Hovde, that does not happen in America. And it's very clear that he has never read Roe v. Wade. I'm pushing to have that be the law of the land. Your rights and freedoms should not depend on your zip code or the state in which you live. And while I said what he just said doesn't happen in America, let me tell you what is. There are healthcare providers facing the threat of prosecution. There are states with 6-week bans. There are states with no exceptions for rape and incest.
Thank you, Senator. Your time is up. All right, we're going to move to another contentious topic, and this one is immigration. Let's go to Aditi.
A sweeping bipartisan border bill failed to pass the U.S. Senate earlier this year. The bill would have added tougher standards to qualify for asylum, allow for partial shutdowns at the border, and open new avenues for legal immigration. In the interest of border security, would you like to see this bill revived? Why or why not? Mr. Hovde, you'll go first. You have 60 seconds.
That bill was dead on arrival. The House had already rejected it. It was masquerading as a border bill with really funding Ukraine. And every senator, once they found out what was in it, was opposed to it. The simple fact is it would have codified allowing almost 5,000 illegal immigrants coming into our country every single day. It wasn't going to change any of the
I don't think it had anything to do with Ukraine.
Immigration laws at all. Here's the reality, and you can't run from this fact. The last year of President Trump, only 300,000 illegal immigrants came into the country. The first year of Joe Biden, he lifted 95 executive orders, most importantly, stay in Mexico. Over 3 million came in the first year, over 3 million the second year, over 4 million the next year. We don't know how many have come in, but it's flooded our streets with fentanyl. We have criminals that have entered into our country, and it's created a humanitarian crisis. I've fought against sex trafficking for almost 20 years, and they can't account for 300,000 children. And those children, sadly, a big percentage of them have probably ended up in the
Thank you,
sex
Mr.
trade.
Hovde. Your time is up.
At least it wasn't the first question, but immigration in Wisconsin.
The question was about the bipartisan bill.
Yes. So we negotiated on a bipartisan basis in the Senate the toughest border bill that we've seen in years. It would have added 1,500 new Border Patrol agents to our southern border. And had it passed in this spring, they would be there now. Very importantly, the bill also deployed technology to our southern border to allow us to scan every vehicle that comes through our ports of entry. That would have allowed us to interdict fentanyl that is poisoning folks across this country. The Border Patrol agents endorsed this measure. But you know what? Eric Hovde and Donald Trump wanted the political issue. They wanted the chaos. They didn't want a solution. I'm focusing on real solutions. Eric Hovde wants to run political ads against me.
Well, you mentioned political ads, and I think we're going to make you both a little uncomfortable with the next question because it's about misleading ads. And the question is going to come from Shannon.
Viewers and listeners have told us they are frustrated with negative, misleading ads. So let's talk about two of them. Senator Baldwin, your ad claims that Mr. Hovde called farmers lazy. Mr. Hovde, your ad claims Senator Baldwin funded a clinic offering transgender therapy for minors without parental consent. Both of these ads have been found false by nonpartisan organizations. Both of these ads end with you saying, I approve this message. You could pull these ads. Why don't you do it? You both have 60 seconds to respond. Senator Baldwin, you may go first.
So there have been 19 independent fact checks of Eric Hovde throughout the course of this campaign that have all produced false results. Eric Hovde is lying. I think it's really hard to say that an ad is false when you are hearing Eric Hovde, in his own words, You're seeing this with your eyes. I'm telling you things he has said. The context of that.
I didn't hear him say farmers are lazy, ma'am.
Interview about why we could easily increase the retirement age to 72 because farmers didn't take the physical toil they used to. They just largely ride around on tractors. I spend so much time with dairy farmers, and I can tell you they are insulted by those words, and I stand by those.
Mr. Hovde.
Oh, it was just paraphrasing?
Baldwin's ads has been a lie. I'm supposedly the jerk from California, yet I'm born, raised here in this state, spent my, last 12 years living where you grew up. I vote here, I live here, I was raised here. I'm a UW grad, you're not. The farmer thing, law school, not undergrad.
Yes.
Look, as it pertains to the clinic, she funded an earmark for that clinic. The clinic changed what's on its website.
The law school is more prestigious, by the way.
Approval. But every single one of her ads has been false. So, Senator Baldwin, you claim I live in California, and that's where I am, and I'm not a Wisconsinite, even though, as I said, I live in the neighborhood you grew up. There's such thing as a way to prove it. It's called a utility bill. I have my utility bill. Let's get them for the last 10 years.
Mr. Hovde,
and
no props.
And
Mr.
see who
Hovde,
actually
your time
has lived in this state.
Your time is up, and I don't believe that we heard from either of you about the question that asked what a candidate should do if an ad that they have produced is known and proven to be false. Should you withdraw that ad? And so I'm going to give each of you, again, another 30 seconds to answer that question, starting with Senator Baldwin, since you responded first.
So, you have seen ads where we have amplified things that Eric Hovde has said. Sometimes he's said those on right-wing radio talk shows. Sometimes he's said those in television interviews. I think it is totally fair for a candidate to amplify what their opponent has said, especially as a proof point of where they stand with regard to fighting for you.
Mr. Hovde?
Look, I think I addressed it. What you're saying, that ad that I ran about the clinic, it's not false, and they just changed what's on their webpage. As it pertains to Senator Baldwin, literally every single one of her ads, she even claims for the things that she's accomplished, she didn't accomplish. She's trying to take credit for doing something against fentanyl when it was Senator Tim Scott's bill that wrote the bill. He said Senator Baldwin offered no amendment and hadn't talked to her for 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Hovde. Your time is up. We're going to change gears now to foreign policy, and we're going to move to Jeff.
Israel.
The leader of Hamas was killed by Israeli forces. Some hope this could bring the war between Israel and Hamas closer to a ceasefire. Polls show Americans want U.S. support for Israel, but are also worried about civilian casualties. And the Biden administration has told Israel to let more humanitarian aid into Gaza in 30 days or
this is Wisconsin
of U.S. aid. Should the U.S. continue to aid
Senator Tammy Baldwin?
And should restrictions be placed on that aid?
This is the Democrat. This is Eric Hovde, the Republican.
Look, Israel was attacked, and they lost thousands of lives. And if our country was attacked, we would go wage war on that country if it happened in Mexico or in Canada. And the Biden administration constantly meddling and trying to engage and tell them how to wage a war is wrong. But let's go back to what this conflict really is about. And it's not so much between the Palestinian people and Israel. It's really between Iran and Israel and the U.S. Iran controls Hamas and Hezbollah. They're both proxies. They're funded. Senator Baldwin not only voted for the deal that President Obama allowed Iran to lift the sanctions and get cash payments that fueled ISIS and the terrorism, but then President Trump put
cash money, y'all,
sanctions And had Iran on its back, Senator Baldwin goes back and votes for the deal that Joe Biden, that lifted the sanctions, that funded the terrorism,
Hovde.
and that's why we're in this war today.
Senator?
Yes. A little over a year ago, on October 7th, we saw a horrible terrorist attack on Israel. 1,200 people dead.
She condemned.
As a weapon of war. Hostages were taken. Israel has the right to defend itself. But as we've seen this war unfold, we've also seen untold civilian casualties, children, women. We have to help foster a path towards ceasefire so that the hostages can be released and so that humanitarian aid can be surged into Gaza. I am hopeful that with the confirmed death now of Yahya Sinwar, that we will have a path to that peace and keep some hope alive of a two-state solution in the region.
Let us move to another foreign policy issue, Ukraine. And that question is going to come from Neil.
The focus now is Ukraine. Since Ukraine was invaded by Russia, the U.S. administration and other NATO allies have been strong supporters of Ukraine. Should whomever the new president is stay that course? You both have 60 seconds. Senator Baldwin, you may begin.
You know, this conflict is truly about democracy versus dictatorship. And we have to stand on the side of democracy. Vladimir Putin is a dictator. He illegally invaded a sovereign democratic nation, and the free world stood up to Ukraine's defense. That's what's at stake here. If Putin were allowed to run through Ukraine without our backing the Ukrainian troops, who's next? A NATO country? Poland? And that would mean U.S. boots on the ground. We need to stay the course, but it seems that Donald Trump doesn't know the difference between our allies and our enemies. And Eric Hovde stands with him and would have voted against the legislation to fund Ukrainians' weaponry.
Mr. Hovde?
Look, I think the war in Ukraine is a direct result of the absolute failure in how we left Afghanistan. We pulled out our troops. We left a key strategic military base. We left Americans behind to die. 13 Marines that died that day, Afghan allies that supported us that risked their lives. There's a reason why you saw them running, holding onto those planes, falling to their death. We also left billions of military equipment behind. Because of that, I think our adversaries moved. Putin on Ukraine, Iran through their proxies on Israel.
Putin on Ukraine.
As it pertains to Ukraine, the White House, an expert came to them and said, look, you're getting ready to park 17 F-15s and like 30 A-10s. If you train the Ukrainians how to use those aircrafts, Russia will not have air superiority. And we should have done that. So we could have done things to prevent that war from even beginning. But you have sent billions of dollars.
Mr. Hovde, your time is up, and I'm going to return to the specific question. And I believe we heard from Senator Baldwin to stay the course in supporting Ukraine. Specifically, I will ask you, are you in agreement?
Depends on what the F-16s are for. If you're sticking them up your ass,
and then she's going
that's
to
an awful lot, Mox.
Sure. Do I think that Vladimir Putin is an absolutely evil man? Absolutely. But I think we need to try to find a way to get to peace. Sadly, what's happening in Ukraine is we're wiping out generations of their people and turning a lot of their cities into rubble. And while I was supportive of Ukraine at first, the amounts of tens of billions of dollars that have gone to Ukraine that are not accountable causes great concern for me. So I don't think we should continue to fund endlessly money into Ukraine.
Thank you, Mr. Hovde. Senator Baldwin.
I strongly support backing Ukraine. This is really, literally about democracy versus dictatorship. Because of those brave soldiers in Ukraine, we don't have any boots on the ground in the region. But had we not supported Ukraine, where's Russia going next? Poland? We have to stand on the side of democracy. Eric Hovde would have voted against the measure that helps fund the Ukrainian effort.
Thank you both. We're now coming back to domestic issues. We're going to talk about farming, and let's go to Aditi.
Congress has failed to approve a new farm bill, which expired at the end of last month. This puts funding at risk for agricultural subsidies paid to Wisconsin farmers and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, commonly known as food stamps. What will it take for each of you to vote on a new farm bill? Mr. Hovde, you have 60 seconds.
Well, I'm not an expert on the Farm Bill because I'm not in the U.S. Senate at this point in time, so I can't opine specifically on all aspects of that Farm Bill. But one of the problems...
I feel like that's a kind of an important issue for Wisconsin.
They're masquerading as farm bills, and while they address some of the needs of farmers, a lot of the bills are just funding big corporations that have nothing to do with farming. So I have a great concern about that, and I think farm bills need to get back for farmers. Let me tell you what I hear from farmers, because if you drive around the state, you see Hovde signs on literally almost every farm, and I've been on so many different farms. And what are they talking about? Regulations constantly, the kind of regulations that Senator Baldwin and her allies continue to push on them. One of the big ones that they're very concerned about being passed is WOTUS, Waters of the United States, and all the implications that have. So as many farmers will say, if you just stay out of my way, I know how to care for my land and do proper farming.
Again, the Farm Bill question to Senator Baldwin.
We need a farm bill that's balanced, and we need to provide that certainty to Wisconsin farmers. They're very eager to have Congress pass a new farm bill. They need the consistency that a farm bill has. But one of the problems with the farm bill right now is that the House, controlled by Republicans, has written a bill that's basically eviscerated nutrition programs. Farmers support nutrition programs because it means purchasing their goods. But I just want to say that the Hovde plan, which would revert and reset spending levels back to the last decade, that plan would cut the U.S. Department of Agriculture by 34%. That is not standing up for our farmers. And I will say I was proud to receive the Wisconsin Farm Bureau endorsement. I think I'm the first Democrat in nearly 20 years. That's for the hard work I've done on behalf of our farmers and dairy in particular.
Thank you both, and I'd like to remind the viewers...
He has a very good shot of winning.
...information about things like the Farm Bill.
This is the state that elected Ron Johnson.
...that have been researched for
multiple times
on the WBA debate website, and you can look those up if you'd like to extend your knowledge as well.
I was on crack.
All right, we're going to move to the environment, and let's go talking now about PFAS contamination, and that is Allison.
Several areas in Wisconsin are struggling with PFAS contamination, chemicals linked to cancer, changes in metabolism, and lower birth rates. So much so that in communities that I cover in La Crosse County have been relying on bottled water for more than 3 years because of dangerous levels in their well water. What do you believe Congress's role should be in preventing the problem from getting worse while supporting communities dealing with PFAS right now? Senator Baldwin, you will start. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. PFAS chemicals are sometimes byproducts of manufacturing. They're also a component of firefighting foam that is in almost every airport. I'm glad you mentioned the situation in La Crosse. In La Crosse, they have a municipal water system that's able to filtrate the PFAS. But on the island where the airport is, everyone has private wells. I've worked very closely with that community as well as with La Crosse, including providing federal funds that were approved in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Eric Hovde would have opposed the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That funding that I've secured for communities across the state, including Wausau and Rhinelander and Peshtigo, would not have been available. I am proud to help lead the efforts to remediate PFAS across the state.
Mr. Hovde, your approach to the PFAS contamination.
Hovde.
Look, I've been a member and a big supporter of the Clean Lakes Alliance. I grew
This is
up
Republican Eric Hovde.
I live on Lake Mendota. I swim, water ski, fish. I love our lakes. And it's so important that we make sure our water is safe and
They call me Hovde.
So, yes,
pronounced with an Hovde.
make sure from a regulatory standpoint that any of these chemicals that are having an impact need to get addressed, and cleanup efforts, absolutely. But Senator Baldwin constantly goes and says, I would have voted against this and that. And the reason why I would have voted against a lot of these issues is really simple. Is because we're breaking our country apart financially. We're driving ourselves off a cliff. That's why inflation got ignited. That's why the price of your food,
U.S. doing a Thelma and Louise.
your health care, your car insurance, because of this reckless spending that she's been engaging in.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to point you to solutions and proposed solutions, which is what the question was. So, Mr. Hovde, you have 30 seconds then to respond about that. And Senator Baldwin, you will have a response as well. What solutions do you propose?
Jill, I just said that the government needs to do a job of regulating any kind of chemical that is contaminating our well water and put forth cleanup efforts. That's exactly what I said.
Okay, thank you. And you can have that same response time.
So, I talked about some of my work to help communities remediate when PFAS has been found in their water supplies. I also am a sponsor of a bipartisan bill called the Healthy H2O Act. That would provide grants to allow private well owners that are across the state in rural areas to test their water. The tests are expensive, and many people aren't able to test to make sure that they have clean drinking water. This
Thank you,
would fix
Senator.
that.
All right, we're covering a lot of territory tonight, and now we're going straight to Washington and the Supreme Court. Jeff has that question.
The Marquette Law School poll out this week finds 90% of those polled support a code of ethics for the Supreme Court justices. While the court did
goddamn right
late last year, it's been criticized because it lacks accountability by allowing justices to police themselves. Among the proposed responses, the adoption of a code with more teeth, as well as 18-year term limits for the Supreme Court justices. What, if any, new rules do you support for the Supreme Court? Mr. Hovde, please start our 60-second responses.
I think we should absolutely have a code of ethics for the justices. I don't think they should be engaging in any kind of private investment in the stock market while they serve in that capacity. And I understand the desire to have a term limit. I'm supportive of term limits. I think career politicians should have term limits. And in fact, when we talk about a code of ethics, I think this is a very important point. From the get-go, I said I'm not going to take special interest money. I will not be owned by anyone. Unlike Senator Baldwin, who not only has taken massive amounts of special interest money from Big Pharma, Wall Street, Big Tech, but her partner on Wall Street, a Wall Street executive, is investing in Big Tech and Big Pharma, a committee she oversees, and they don't disclose those investments and how much they're profiting from it.
He's real pissed about the lesbian, isn't he?
Disclose what investments your partner is making.
Thank you, Mr. Hovde. The question on the Supreme Court?
Well, first I need to talk about what Eric Hovde just said. Eric Hovde should stay out of my personal life. And I think I speak for most Wisconsin women that he should stay out of all of our personal lives. That said, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, there's no trust anymore. When we saw the exposés about Clarence Thomas and others going on private planes to exotic locations, spas, when we hear stories that private interests have paid off mortgages and vehicle loans, that is outrageous. We need a binding, tough standard of ethics and conduct. We're also very distrustful now of the court because we saw 3 Trump-appointed nominees lie to the Judiciary Committee about their respect for precedent. So I think an examination of term limits for the Supreme Court in a way that doesn't advantage one party or the other, because we don't know who will be president when those term limits come up, would be an advisable
Your
policy.
time is up. Thank you, Senator. All right, we're going to move on to voting rights, and that one is Shannon.
There's a patchwork of election laws across the country, leaving concern about potential unequal access to the ballot box. What role should the federal government play in increasing voter confidence while also ensuring that the election process is safe and accessible?
And that question goes to?
I don't know if his head's sideways. I'd need I need a level to use on his mustache.
So, voting rights are so critical, and we have seen at the state level, including here in Wisconsin, laws passed that make it harder for some to vote. There's the expression, some people don't want some people to vote. My opponent has talked about people in nursing homes. I think the exact quote was, people in nursing homes have 5-6 months to live. They are at no point to vote. My grandmother broke her hip and voted in my first congressional election from her nursing home. But the Voting Rights Act has been eviscerated by the United States Supreme Court. And we've got to add back the provisions that were lopped off by the Supreme Court. And we also, I think, have to pass at the federal level laws that guarantee access and disclosure.
Thank you. Mr. Hovde.
First, I have to go back to the last comment. Senator Baldwin, I could care less about your personal life, but when your partner is investing in companies that you're overseeing and you're not disclosing that, that is an absolute conflict of interest. As it pertains to voting rights, look, we have to create confidence in our voting system. It is causing too much tension in our country. And let me tell you, it doesn't help when our state Supreme Court brings back drop boxes when those were only used for a pandemic. So why are they being brought back? But look, I have an important question to ask Senator Baldwin. There's a bill before the Senate that would bar non-U.S. citizens from voting in elections. But you have not taken a position on that. So it'd be very interesting. And I'll give up my time. Are you going to vote for that provision that would stop non-U.S. citizens from voting in our elections?
Mr. Hovde.
Well, I'll take those next 3 minutes.
All right,
It is already illegal for people who are non-citizens
Exactly.
to vote in
This is the Wisconsin Senate debate.
Time is up.
because it already is the law.
And both of your time is up. Thank
The
you.
woman is Senator Tammy Baldwin, the incumbent.
On our debate.
Man is Republican
going to look,
Eric Hovde.
You had mentioned fentanyl previously. And
This is going to be a tight race. The other senator is a Republican.
More to the subject. So let's talk
The
about
governor is a
that.
Democrat.
Neil's question.
This is a state that
Wisconsin Department of Health Services
Harris needs to win.
last year, fentanyl was identified in 91% of opioid overdose deaths. The synthetic drug is making its way through legal ports at the southern border. A senior official with the U.S. Custom and Border Agency states that 2/3 of those arrested for smuggling the drug are Americans. What bipartisan strategy would you suggest to curb the flow into the U.S. and address community-based treatment and prevention programs? You both have 60 seconds. Mr. Hovde, you may begin.
Look, this is an issue I started talking about long before I ever gotten into this election. We lost 108,000 Americans last year to this poison, 112,000 the year before. It's the #1 leading cause of death of 18 to 45-year-olds. It's devastating communities all over the place. My 26-year-old daughter has known 5 people in her college, her friends, that brothers and siblings of friends that have died from this poison. And you're exactly right. It is laced into a lot of pills. So what do we need to do? First, it's produced most of the content in China. We got to take hard sanctions against China, hold them accountable. We've got to close our southern border where a lot of this pours over. Third, we got to stiffen sentencing laws. If you're caught lacing...
Stiffen up that dick.
You should go away to jail for the rest of your life. You are killing people. And Washington has done nothing about it, and Senator Baldwin
All right,
has
your
done
time
nothing
is up.
as this
Thank
crisis.
you, Senator Baldwin. Your turn.
This is a personal issue for me. My mother struggled with addiction to prescription pain pills. When I first came to the Senate, the crisis, the opioid crisis, was the overprescribing of things like OxyContin and oxycodone. And we have passed many sweeping reforms, particularly in the VA, that has reduced the number of these pills that are prescribed. Heroin came next, and then fentanyl. My first bill on fentanyl was introduced 8 years ago. Eric Hovde somehow thinks he's the first person who's ever focused on this problem. We need to get Narcan, the overdose reversal drug, deployed statewide, and I have been a leader in making sure that our first responders have it accessible.
Thank you. And we don't have much time left. We're going to give you a question that only takes 30 seconds, and it has to do with bipartisanship. And that question is going to come from Shannon Sims.
We hear from voters who say they are tired of gridlock in Washington and want their representatives to be willing to work across the aisle. So, in the spirit of bipartisanship, we're going to ask both of you to name a contemporary elected official from the other party that you consider to be a role model for consensus building. Mr. Hovde, you will get 60 seconds.
Very interesting.
Well, sadly, the Democratic Party just lost one that was fantastic at it, and that was Joe Manchin, the senator from Virginia. It'd been nice if Senator Baldwin would exhibit some of that. She voted 95.5% of the time for with President Biden and rarely reaches across the aisle. Look, in the world of business, you have to reach across the aisle. You have to compromise because you're never going to get anything done.
You heard him. In the world of business, you have to give reach arounds.
I promise you, I will reach across the aisle. I'll go meet with all the senators on the other side and try to.
Senator Baldwin, who do you name?
Well, I would name Susan Collins. I sit on the Appropriations Committee, and our committee is chaired by Patty Murray, and Susan Collins is the ranking Republican member. And we have passed almost all of our bills out of committee on a bipartisan basis. I fight for Wisconsin and only Wisconsin, which means I'll work with Republicans or Democrats, Republican administrations or Democratic administrations, to get the job done for Wisconsin, but I'll also stand up to them.
Thank you.
If necessary.
Your time is up. Well, I told you both that there would be time for you to respond to things that didn't sit well with you. So we're going to go to the last question, which we call defending your record, and that's Neil.
Throughout the campaign and in this debate, you've heard criticisms that you may believe were inaccurate or unfair, and you'd like to respond to them. Here's your chance. You each have 60 seconds, and by the coin toss, Mr. Hovde, you go first.
This is the last question?
Yes.
Look, there's so many lies that Senator Baldwin's made up. As I said, she's perfected the art of lying.
Light one up, tip one back.
Where I live, the things I've said, she takes this much what I've said and puts it out of context and then tries to say I'm saying something different than I've said. You've heard it on Social Security. She always tries to run around the fact that we have gone into a debt crisis that has created the inflation and the problems that so many people are experiencing that are hammering the livelihoods of most Wisconsinites. Look, I entered into this race because I love my country. I love America. We've been blessed to live in this wonderful country. But our country's gone in the wrong direction. You can stay with Senator Baldwin, who's been in Washington for 26 years. Do you think you're better off than you were 4 years ago or even 26 years ago? I think it's time for a change. I promise you I will work hard.
I'm better off than I was 26 years ago.
I'm honored to have your vote.
Thank you. Senator.
I fight for Wisconsin and only for Wisconsin, and it is something that I take great pride in. But Eric Hovde just said something about lying. Independent fact checkers have fact-checked him 19 times with 19 falses. So keep that in mind when you listen to him. He's made assertions about my personal life. I want to talk about his professional life. Eric Hovde owns a $3 billion California bank, a $7 million Laguna Beach, California home, and he's been named among the more influential residents of Orange County 3 years in a row. We have a Brown County, Wisconsin. We have a Greene County, Wisconsin. We do not have an Orange County, Wisconsin. Look, this election...
Huh? Oh, California. Oh.
This election is about helping working people get ahead, not supporting a $4 trillion tax cut for the rich and big corporations. I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you've seen them, and we hope tonight's debate will help voters make more informed...
You can have them back.
Now, we thank the...
We didn't like what we saw.
And sometimes for their patience with us as well, as we had to get as many questions in as we could and sometimes cut you off. But we'd also like to...
He's apparently originally from Wisconsin, but yeah, is some venture capitalist in California.
That our data team's research materials on debate topics can be found at the...
That was the Wisconsin Senate debate.
And a quick thank you.
Incumbent Democrat Tammy Baldwin.
I'm sorry, it's Elizabeth Wattis of WMTV Madison, Harm Van Heisen from WGB.
The Republican nominee Eric Hovde
of WKOW Madison, and Jonathan Krause.
Georgie, good evening. Who else snuck in here on me? Abattoir. Progressive Squirrel. Timu Jeff Foxworthy. That's a good one. Igloo, good evening. Somebody give Igloo a shout out for me. Lenny, my man. Battle Opossum. T-minus. Drake is here, everybody. He looks like he could be a cop. You're right. Very much. He definitely looked like he could have been a cop. Oh, yes. We watched that. We watched the Trump at the dinner in between all the other shit we did last night. I was more hung up on the execution that luckily didn't take place. Let's do foreign affairs first. We got a lot of news to cover, and then we got a car chase at the end. So let's get to the end. Apparently, this car chase is wild. so let's get to the car chase. That's the fun shit, right? It's Friday. It's Friday. You ain't got shit to do, so we're gonna get high. We can find out what that news be doing for just a little while, and then we're gonna do a car chase, and then we might listen to music. Who knows? Cuba's power grid failed, leaving millions without electricity.
In the midst of a nationwide blackout after one of the island's major power plants failed, shutting down the electrical grid and leaving the entire island of 10 million people in the dark. The government closed schools, non-essential businesses in this last-ditch effort to release pressure on the system and keep...
It's totally Friday.
But it didn't work. It wasn't enough. It's coming as Cubans are already suffering from shortages of food, fuel, water, medicine as well. Ed Augustin has more from Cuba.
But I'm already on, so we're finding out what that news be doing.
Downtown Havana. Behind me, a famous theater. And in front of me, it's just about to come into view as soon as I pass this bush. Hey presto, we have a school. Both of them today.
You say he likes bush?
Closed. Not just here in Havana, but across the nation. Not a single school opened up today. Not a single theater or cinema. Why?
The place is gorgeous.
An unprecedented, almost unprecedented electricity crisis. Cuban Prime Minister
we'll see, Georgie.
Yesterday, in an emergency address, addressed the nation, saying that power cuts, power outages are going to get worse. They simply, he said, don't have enough money to import all the petrol they need to keep the lights on. And what they're going to have to do, he said, is take measures to reduce consumption.
It's insane we still embargo this country.
Parts of the economy. And turning off non-vital services was the phrase he used in order to reduce consumption. Across Cuba today, all schools closed to save electricity. All theaters, cinemas also closed, and that will last until at least next week. And then this morning,
next week,
went from bad to worse. The main power plant in the whole country, which hasn't received enough maintenance over recent decades, broke down. And that triggered a nationwide power cut. The approximately 10 million people in Cuba almost all of them right now are without power. The Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, says they're working on it.
It is an amazing country.
Are worried that the rolling power cuts that they've been used to for the last few years, that in Havana can last upwards of 4 hours, that in other parts of the country can last upwards sometimes of 18 hours, are about to get even worse. Back to you.
Thanks for watching.
Shut up, Lester.
Breaking news and top.
That's why it is sad that we have shut it off from the world, or at least from us. I really wanted to play this last night, but goddamn, we did 3 debates. I was hungry. There was a lot going on. I didn't feel like covering what was going on in Israel, but we got to watch this video. If you have not seen it, it's insane. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, apparently. I kind of feel like that's the leader of the Taliban moniker. It doesn't mean a lot. His final moments were caught on a drone flown by Israel that has been released.
Story of the day, the monumental story for Israel and the world, is the IDF is saying that they have eliminated Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar in Gaza. Of course, a very big day as well. We're also just seeing images for the first time from the IDF of the final moments of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar killed in Gaza. A drone there looking inside of some of this rubble, and they believe that to be him. Of course,
he was just hanging out.
This video shows here on Live Now from Vox. I do want to bring into the conversation right now from the FDD senior research analyst Joe Truzman. Joe, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now.
Show the whole fucking thing.
This very, very closely, all the Iranian proxies. How big of a day, how monumental of a moment was it for the IDF to get Yahya? What you're looking at? Walk us through what we're seeing.
Right. So right now the drone is essentially entering the area where Sinwar was.
Yeah, he's got no like half his arm is gone.
This is after he's been injured. Okay. There was a firefight before this happened. The IDF sent the drone to identify if there's any terrorists. This is what they do. They've done many times in Gaza. They want to make sure that none of their troops are hurt when they're trying to identify the terrorists. And in this case, you see Sinwar is sitting there, severely injured. And then he has, it looks like he tries to throw, it looks like a plank or a stick. But of course, that doesn't do anything. So they were able to identify him. But at that moment, they didn't know it was him. As you can see, his face is covered, right? So they didn't know it was Sinwar. So this is what they did. They saw that there was still a terrorist inside the building. And eventually, after this.
How'd you know he was a terrorist?
From at least from the reports that I read, that they fired a tank shell in there, and that's what killed Sinwar.
All right, very good. That was a good breakdown of it, because it's hard to understand because maybe people don't generally see some of these images as well. But Yahya Sinwar there. Are you surprised, because it's been noted the better part of the year, the mastermind of October the 7th, we've already passed the 1-year anniversary, that he wasn't more so in hiding, because there are reports that he was in the tunnels consistently. Are we surprised he was maybe out in the open in such a way?
I wouldn't say be surprised, because listen, the Israelis they started in northern Gaza, they made their way down. They've been going through all these tunnels, all this Hamas infrastructure, and rooting the terrorists out. And they've been in southern Gaza for many months now. So I think what happened here is that Sinwar just didn't have any more places to go, all right? Specifically underground. So now what we saw is that he was outside, at least above.
Dude does have an awesome beard.
The IDF was able to.
And hairline. Dude's a good looking guy. I'd fuck him. Or get fucked by him. I don't know. Whichever one, if he's a bottom or a top. Lucky, good evening. So, it's kind of Christmas for political nerds. On top of it being the election, is this yet another October surprise? Unsealed documents in the Trump federal election case.
A judge has unsealed more than 1,800 pages of documents in the federal 2020 election interference case against Donald Trump. Lawyers for the former president had pushed to delay the release of special counsel Jack Smith's filing until after the election. Much of the unsealed documents, which includes transcripts of interviews and court hearings, remain heavily redacted. CBS News congressional correspondent.
I feel like we already had 5 October surprises.
You've been reading through this. Any revelations?
This really is the last thing we expect in court involving Donald Trump before Election Day. The final filing of note in this election conspiracy case, this 2020 election subversion case. Yes, it's 1,900 pages that were released of exhibits from special counsel Jack Smith, but most of those pages are redacted, blanked out, not to be read because there's sensitive information included. So of what remains of the hundreds of pages of deposition transcripts that are there from Trump allies and former Trump aides, you get a sense of what Jack Smith's trying to argue here, that all of these discussions before January 6th that are relevant to the case and what happened on January 6th in the White House as the riot unfolded were the actions, according to the special counsel, of a private citizen, not of a president, not official acts. And all of that is so weight-bearing because the Supreme Court has granted Trump presidential immunity in that landmark ruling from July. So to keep this case alive, to keep it on track for a possible trial next year, Jack Smith's arguing this was campaign private action. So some of the little grains in the filings today are noteworthy. Questions to White House aides about that January 6th White House ellipse speech. Was it written on a private computer or a government computer? There are actually discussions of what happened inside the White House as the riot unfolded. A White House aide saying in a deposition, Trump, when told there was a riot, grabbed the TV remote, the aide fetched a Diet Coke, and Jack Smith has argued Trump watched the riot instead of immediately calling back his supporters. We'll see the timetable moving forward for this case. If Trump is reelected, it's quite likely this special counsel is fired and this case is closed. But if it goes past January in a President Harris administration, this remains on some trajectory, Lana, towards a criminal jury trial.
Yeah, but Scott, as interesting, and it definitely paints a picture, the Diet Coke detail and the remote control. All of this sounds like
he totally had Diet Coke.
Heard before from the special counsel. As anybody who's covered elections knows that we're always keeping our eyes open for an October surprise. And from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like it's a fair assessment to say this
isn't really one.
Do we know anything more about the information that's redacted?
What's redacted is likely the things we don't know at this moment. We know there's grand jury testimony. We know Mike Pence testified before the grand jury in this case. There could be any number of calls or cell phone messages or text messages included in what's redacted. I think the overall issue here, though, is it lands January 6th and election subversion in the public consciousness 18 days before the next election, a political issue for Donald Trump. But I think the broader arguments yesterday were more telling. Trump tried to get this delayed until the week after the election, and the judge said no, that holding these things back because of an election, that's election interference, that everything should see the light of day. Whether this matters, it's a question we can't answer right now.
Well, it's 1,900 pages, so they haven't had time to really
Trump trial
look through it.
His campaign.
But apparently a lot of it was already public information.
His election pending in November are not going to be factors if he goes before a jury or before her in court.
I just finished a coffee, Torchy.
Doing it all for us. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. That was a pretty good rundown, but still nothing we really learned new from the filings that were unredacted today. A judge in, I believe this happened in Florida. Yeah. A federal judge has told the state of Florida that they have been violating campaign law.
A controversial commercial related to the abortion amendment in November's election is allowed to run on TV stations across the state of Florida. A federal judge ruled the state of Florida crossed the line by demanding TV stations stop airing the ad. Rich Donnelly is on your side with a closer look at really some fiery language from a federal judge aimed at the Florida Department of Health. Rich, tell us more.
It's an issue of First Amendment rights related to political speech leading up to the election. The organization Floridians Protecting Freedom created an ad campaign designed to convince people to vote yes on Amendment 4, which would codify abortion in the state constitution. A federal judge says the state went too far by telling local TV stations that they were not allowed to air that ad.
Wow.
If I did not end my pregnancy, I would lose my baby. I would lose my life.
This is the commercial at the center of a ruling by a federal judge against the state of Florida's Department of Health. The commercial ran on dozens of TV stations across the state of Florida, including First Coast News. Under the current Florida law, abortions can only be performed until the 6th week of pregnancy unless certain factors, like pregnancy caused by rape, incest, or the health of the mother, are in jeopardy. A cease and desist letter written on Florida Department of Health letterhead was sent to those stations claiming that the commercial is false and dangerous. U.S. District was blunt in his decision to grant a temporary restraining order against the state of Florida's cease and desist order. Part of his ruling read, quote, "To keep it simple for the state of Florida, it's the First Amendment, stupid." End quote. Judge Walker also wrote, "The government cannot excuse its indirect censorship of political speech simply by declaring the disfavored speech is false." Part of a statement by the campaign director for Yes on 4 with regards to the restraining order reads, quote, "This ruling is a powerful reminder that Floridians will not back down in the face of government intimidation." Another one of the criticisms of Amendment 4 is that it would allow minors to have abortions up until the 24th week of pregnancy without letting their parents know. However, that is not true. The amendment text states that the amendment would not change Article 10, Section 22 of the Florida Constitution, which states a parent or guardian must be notified before a minor's pregnancy is terminated. Amendment 4 will need at least 60% of the vote to change the law on abortions in the state of Florida. A preliminary injunction hearing regarding the temporary restraining order has been scheduled for October 29th.
Wow.
Jacksonville, Rich Donnelly, First Coast News, on your side.
Well, that's a wild story. Speaking of restraining orders, temporary orders, what we went through last night in Texas was wild. I can't believe that we were on live for all of that shit. I will let the news explain it to you because I don't know that I could do it justice.
It has never happened before, a Texas death row inmate being subpoenaed to testify before state lawmakers in order to halt his execution.
If we had not issued that subpoena, he almost certainly would be dead right now.
Both Democrats and Republicans on the Texas House of Representatives Criminal Jurisprudence Committee voted unanimously to issue the subpoena after hearing from experts about his case. At issue is that Robert Robertson was convicted of killing his 2-year-old daughter in 2002 in what appeared to be shaken baby syndrome, which scientists and doctors have now dispelled as junk science.
No jury has ever heard the mountains of evidence that could prove his innocence. Never.
Hours before his scheduled execution Thursday night, the Texas Supreme Court also agreed to stop the execution, contradicting an order allowing...
They're leaving off that he's autistic and that the cops thought that he was guilty based on his non-response to his daughter's death, but he's just autistic.
Execution by the Court of Criminal Appeals. So now you have two Texas high courts at odds.
The Court of Criminal Appeals, which normally handles criminal cases, said last night that the execution could proceed, but yet the Texas Supreme Court that handles civil cases said that the execution should be halted.
In an extraordinary move, Texas prison guards are now planning to move Robertson from death row to the state capitol to testify on Monday. After he testifies Monday, experts say most likely prosecutors will try to get a new execution date.
That's probably be 90 days plus out.
In the meantime, Robertson's lawyers could petition the trial judge or the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals to consider new evidence.
You see them kind of pursuing two strategies. One is this should be dismissed outright. He is innocent. And the other is, well, if you can't abide by that, then at least give us a new trial.
All of this could take months, which some lawmakers say is needed to make sure a potentially innocent man is not executed. In Dallas, I'm Rebecca Lopez.
So there you have it. We will be sure to play his testimony Monday in front of the Texas State House. What a wild story. That's what we went through last night live on the stream. Here's another high-profile court case. I know nothing about this one, but apparently this is must-see TV, captivating people. Got them tuned to their, who's the Nancy Grace nowadays? Oh, what's her name on News Nation? I forget. Who does the high-profile crime stories nowadays? This is the Karen Reed murder trial. Apparently, she gave an interview to like 60 Minutes.
Whether it's shows like Dateline or podcasts
Dateline,
like Serial, or the countless HBO documentaries out there, true crime has become one of the most popular genres in nearly every medium. Again, TV shows, books, podcasts, you name it, it's probably a true crime genre.
A lot of us, me, friends, everything. The stories are told, are often, however, if you...
I like police chases.
Crime stories, so they are gruesome, they are tragic, and they focus on the darkest days of people that the audience doesn't even know. They are strangers. Our Eli Rosenberg joins us live with the allure of how true crime, and particularly this local murder investigation, fits into that genre. Eli?
And JC and Corey, we're about 90 minutes from that Dateline special, and you know those here in Boston and beyond are really going to be glued to it. So tonight we are talking with experts about what it is about this particular case, this investigation, this trial that really resonates and attracts so much interest.
All eyes focused on the spectacle outside a Massachusetts courthouse.
This is the cop woman. Oh, I'm on her side.
TV for years. The murder investigation into the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. But why?
I do know about this case.
We are all like the moon. We have a dark side that you just don't see. Through history, people have been fascinated with crime stories.
Guys, you have to move. You have to move back.
And it's that draw that has so many focusing on Karen Reed. Reed is accused of hitting O'Keefe with her SUV during a snowy night in late January 2022. Her arrest, trial,
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
and subsequent mistrial drawing international attention and dividing the town of...
Yeah, I don't think she did it.
True crime is that it allows us to kind of get up close and personal to trauma and to sort of the
And even if she did do it,
And it was that
I'm rooting her on.
that played out literally. From people showing up at the Dedham courthouse seemingly every
I don't think she did.
week trial, to those watching from home, detailing every move on social media.
So it hovers in this strange space. It is tapping into the abject, the what we don't want to experience in real life. It's taking us to that strange place.
And it's important to know when we're talking about true crime, we are talking about real people here, people that continue to struggle like the O'Keefe family. Meanwhile, this story is far from over. From that Supreme Judicial Court hearing in early November to the second trial, still slated for late January 2025. I'm Eli Rosenberg.
Hold on, I thought I had the Dateline special. It's apparently their reaction to the Dateline special. Is it airing right now? That might be the issue why I don't have it yet. Hold on. BC, what you playing right now? They are on commercial currently. Is this Dateline? Is that what's playing on NBC right now? Yes. This is the Karen Reed interview. It might, the majority of it might already be over. So it would have started 20 minutes ago. I've not seen the new season of True Detective. I started rewatching the first season. It's so goddamn good. I hated the Vince Vaughn season so bad. Like, I don't know if I can watch the new one. Vince Vaughn is so much better of a comedic actor than he is a dramatic actor. That first one, that first season is like one of the best seasons of television ever. Just fucking amazing. I cannot rave about it. For those of you who don't know, it is Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. And that was one of the, like, Matthew McConaughey was on a roll of like fucking roles that won me over. I always hated that motherfucker. And the True Detective season is one of the things that won me over to him. It's so fucking good, isn't it, Abattoir? I like, overall, Breaking Bad is probably like the best series, but that one season of True Detective might be the best season of television of anything. That's what made me sad that like nothing can ever live up to that first season. So like, it's tough. Damn, what a long commercial break they're taking. There's a Vice documentary on the case that it's based off of. Clearly a lot of liberties were taken with the show, but like the case is also very fucked up. I highly recommend it. Really going after Mondaire Jones. This is the second attack
to make AOC proud
on Mondaire Jones.
Responsible for the content of this advertising. News for New York now.
Are those APAC attacks?
On Pluto TV.
APAC attacks.
On Today, Jenna Fisher opens up to Hoda for the first time about battling breast cancer.
I know that there's a lady wondering what's...
Goddamn. All this for this Karen Reed, which I could just do on Sunday.
We now know the name of the Boston police officer whose body was found outside.
The awful news was spreading that winter morning in 2022. Police officer John O'Keefe was dead.
Investigators may find out how one of their own died in the...
Johnny, to his family and friends.
Johnny!
46 years old. His body discovered lying in front of another officer's house. It made no sense.
We didn't know if he had...
I think the cops beat him to death.
And, you know, at that point, we didn't know what had happened.
Beth is part of John's extended family. She didn't want her last name used.
It's like, that's not possible.
It's not. It was unfathomable. I couldn't even think that this could potentially be happening.
How did you hear about John's death?
I got a call from Johnny's brother. He told me, he said, we lost Johnny. I kind of knew what he meant.
I just want an interview. They're going to stretch this out for the whole hour and tell the story, aren't they?
Tom Hubbard and John had been best friends since first grade.
You obviously...
And rightfully so.
Highly of John.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to watch the woman's interview. Fucking Dateline. Anyway. Apparently we had gasps in court yesterday. The story of international fugitive Nicholas Alverdian. Nicholas Alverdian. Yeah, the dude who died was a cop. That was her boyfriend. They had been having a fight. And she dropped him off at this cop party. And apparently, according to the prosecutor, she backed into him and left him for dead in the driveway because they had been arguing. But like there was some shady shit that the police department had been doing, and I think the cops fucking offed him, and then they tried to frame his wife. That's what I think, because they had very little DNA to tie her to the scene. So yeah, go back and check out the case. Apparently we need to get caught up on whatever the fuck is happening with this case.
For more than 3 years, this man swore he was the wildly unlucky victim in a case of mistaken identity.
I am not Nicholas Alaverdi, and I do not know how to make this clear.
He promised he was Arthur Knight, an Irish orphan whose health was failing.
What?
Prefer to be called Arthur Knight. I am Arthur Knight.
Unfairly thrust into the middle of an international manhunt.
Oh, God. Andrea.
No. Police in the United States and the United Kingdom said this man was undoubtedly Nicholas Rossi, the international fugitive wanted on a rape charge in Utah under that name, but also known as Nicholas Alaverdian in Rhode Island. A man who investigators say faked his own death, fled the country, and created a new life in an attempt to avoid prosecution.
I don't have any doubt that it's not me.
But in a Utah courtroom today, a stunning admission.
Mr. Knight, can you also tell us other names that you've gone by previously?
Previously, I was born with the name Nicholas Alaverdian. In 1996, I would have that surname changed by my stepfather when it became Rossi, and I reverted to using it, Alaverdian, in 2008.
He still maintains his innocence, but Arthur Knight now says he is Nicholas Rossi and Nicholas Alaverdian.
I also felt
Thanks, good evening.
My Armenian heritage.
Authorities initially identified him as someone other than Arthur Knight after he was hospitalized for COVID-19 in Scotland. Hospital workers reportedly noticed his distinctive tattoos included in an Interpol arrest warrant and contacted local police. But Arthur, or Nicholas, claimed those tattoos did not prove anything. Instead, he told a judge someone tattooed him while he was in a coma in an effort, he said, to frame him. He fought his extradition at every turn.
To be accused of rape, it could happen to anyone.
Doubling and tripling down on his claims of mistaken identity, perhaps most famously in an interview with Dateline's Andrea Canning.
People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up.
How'd I miss this one?
Exactly.
It was an odd moment, one that even surprised the veteran journalist.
That was probably the weirdest moment I've ever had in an interview, where he just suddenly is showing me, how unstable he is and how sick he is, and he's falling, and then his wife is saying that's a low blow, that I'm even questioning it, and he's supposedly on oxygen.
Supposedly on oxygen.
Bizarre.
In November of 2022, a Scottish court ruled there was overwhelming evidence that the man arrested in the hospital was the fugitive U.S. authorities were searching for.
That Mr. Knight is indeed Nicholas Rossi.
And that's how we got here.
Previously, I was born with the name Nicholas Alaverdian.
Nicholas Alaverdian, or Nicholas Rossi, or Arthur Knight.
They had a hearing today in Young Thug, Mox, but I haven't had a chance to get his footage. We'll probably get an update on Sunday.
Made international headlines. His identity is confirmed. His British accent is seemingly gone. But the pain of his alleged actions is far from resolved.
I think the fact that now he's facing the music is just a big deal for these women and anyone who says they've been conned by Nicholas Alaverdian.
Ellison Barber joins us now. Ellison, this is such a strange story. The guy was clearly a master of disguise.
Was he?
What say about changing his name, his looks, and all these aliases?
So during this hearing, and it's a pretrial hearing that was related to bail, he was denied bail, by the way, in this case, but he told the court that he did it in part because he was receiving threats related to some advocacy work he'd done in Rhode Island years before. And when he was asked to name the people who were allegedly threatening them, he said he wouldn't identify them, but claimed there were two people who could substantiate those claims. One of the people he mentioned has already told a local Providence, Rhode Island paper, this is not true. We reached out to the other person who was named by him, and they said for now, they're not going to be commenting.
All right, Ellison.
Rhode Island isn't a real state. It doesn't exist. Shut up, Lester.
Top stories on the NBA.
I'm sure he was mean. He looked like a gigantic piece of shit. Let me hit the content warning before this one. Back-to-back stories out of Houston. It's usually Fort Worth, but today it's what the fuck is going on in Houston. You can't, Lenny, because it ain't real. It is a fictitious place invented by the show Family Guy. A Houston man has been accused of fatally strangling his pregnant wife.
The tragedy starts Monday when police say they got a 911 call from Lee Gilly saying his wife overdosed. He found her unresponsive and tried to perform CPR. First responders rushed to the home off Austin Street. Detectives say Gilly's wife
I can't be wrong, Lucky.
Hospital. Doctors found Krista Gilly had bruising and apparent trauma to her face. Her autopsy ruling out suicide and instead proving she was strangled to death. The results also revealing she was 8 weeks pregnant.
Ain't no OD I ever heard of.
4 days after his wife's death. Christian Capitan is a defense attorney not affiliated with this case. He says Gilly's movements after his wife's death and before his arrest will be pivotal for this case. Records show Gilly later admitted his wife was not suicidal and not a drug user.
The prosecution is very much going to tell a story as to whether or not was he really acting as though someone who was mourning, who was really sad about what transpired, or was really acting as someone who had consciousness of guilt.
Well, that's how you get a dude who's autistic getting convicted and on death row for a crime he didn't commit.
Double murder charge. How does this work out?
So basically under Texas law and the DA's office,
I wish I had that hair.
Charge, which basically takes into account the death of the unborn child. Under the circumstances, the killing of the mother and the child are both taken into account with this charge.
The Houston Heights Association posted on Facebook that they do plan to hold a vigil for Christmas.
Why you guys
on Tuesday?
Chat, it is not fair for you guys to keep you know how my mind is. So stop gaslighting me and telling me about all the people you know from Rhode Island. It ain't real. You ain't going to convince me. And I don't appreciate it. Like Sparkles put you up to this, didn't she? She's constantly playing games with my head. Making me think shit that ain't real. Prometheus, good evening. Here is our double shot of stories out of Houston. Paramedics showed up to find this man had been stabbed 50 times.
Police say a life alert necklace led them to a grisly crime scene this week.
The alleged killer was found not far from the scene and covered in blood. Jason Miles live outside the jail downtown with new reaction from the victim's friends. Jason.
Hey there, yeah, these people definitely don't want this suspect to make his $1 million bond. Meantime, they're baffled by their friend's very violent death. This empty chair outside of his Aldine Westfield apartment is where I'm told 61-year-old Rudy De Los Santos, or Santos, often sat. He was a very good man. We're going to miss him.
He was a very nice guy. He was a very best friend of mine. I used to come and visit him here.
They say they never saw Santos without his life alert necklace. He always had this thing hanging around his neck. According to Houston police, a life alert notification led paramedics to Santos's apartment on Wednesday, where they found him fatally stabbed. We're told they spotted 34-year-old suspect George Albert Saldivar running from the scene, covered in blood.
What the hell, dude?
Arrested after a brief search.
Mr. Rudy was one of our favorites. He was a great guy, life of the party.
Pastor Broderick James conducts services at the Salvation Army Chapel directly across the street from where Santos lived, and says he was a regular presence in the senior ministry.
I was just here in Bible study last week testifying about the reason why God left him here, and he was here for a purpose and a reason to help other people come out of the situation that he was in before.
The motive for the alleged murder is unclear, but I'm told the suspect may have been...
Another one up for the atheists. I'm here for a purpose, gets stabbed a week later. Where's your God now? Sorry.
Directly across the street from where Santos lived, and says he was a regular presence in the senior ministry.
I was just here in Bible study last week testifying about the reason why God left him here, and he was here for a purpose and a reason to help other people come out of the situation that he was in before.
The motive for the alleged murder is unclear, but I'm told the suspect may have been living in the apartment above Santos, though no one immediately recognized his very recognizable face.
But one thing you can rest sure on is that Mr. Rudy had salvation.
They say they'll be praying for him and his family. And the suspect waived his initial appearance in probable cause court, but charges were read aloud. It appears Mr. Santos may have been stabbed, get this, about 50 times. A bloody frying pan, baseball bat, and knife all found near his body. Reporting live from the jail downtown, Jason Miles, KHOU 11 News.
Hard to hear those details. Jason, thank you.
A bloody frying pan, baseball bat, and knife were found. Apparently we're going to Washington, where we have a missing pregnant woman.
Tonight, Auburn police are asking for your help to find a missing woman. Thanks for joining us for Fox 13 News at 5. I'm Matthew Smith.
And I'm Hannah Kim. Investigators say Jacqueline Perez was taken from her home against her will on Sunday. She's 6 weeks pregnant, making the situation more dire.
Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman has a look at what we know so far.
This is a very alarming situation. Detectives have now made this case their top priority. They say the longer Jacqueline is missing, the more critical the situation becomes. And so far, detectives are not releasing the exact address she was taken from to protect the integrity of this case. But they are turning to you, the community, in case you may have witnessed what happened. Jacqueline Perez has now been missing for 5 days. Police first sharing the 21-year-old's picture Thursday, asking the community to be on the lookout for the then 6-week pregnant Guatemalan woman. Auburn Police Public Information Officer Colby Crossley says the first 911 call came in Monday morning when Jacqueline's husband called to report her missing.
What we had learned was that she was actually missing from the night prior.
Detectives believe she was taken from her home by force around 6 or 7 p.m. while her husband was at work.
The husband came home about 20 minutes or so after she was missing, but didn't call us until the next morning.
Why he waited is still unclear. Detectives are now playing catch-up, but say he is talking.
We have not ruled out any suspects, so we're looking into anyone and everyone at this point.
Search efforts are focused in North Auburn, where police say she's lived for the last 4 months. Jacqueline and her husband emigrated from Guatemala within the last year, so there is a slight language barrier as her English is very limited. Detectives are now combing through security and traffic cameras trying to find any clue that will help them find Jacqueline.
Our biggest concerns and fears is obviously her well-being. You know, we want to make sure she's safe.
Here is one more look at Jacqueline Perez. She's 5 feet 4 inches tall, weighing about 111 pounds. She does have a scar on her left cheek. Anyone with any information about where she might be is urged to call the Auburn Police Department. That tip line is 253-288-74.
And first tonight, a disturbing death investigation.
Have I been muted that whole fucking time? What a fantastic setup, too. God damn it. M. Lord, good evening. So Torchy says it's usually the husband. Do you stand by that statement, Torchy? I did not change the order of my stories any. This was the next story that was on the list. It's empirically true. A husband has been charged after his wife's body was found wrapped in plastic.
And first tonight, a disturbing death investigation. Philadelphia police say a 61-year-old woman was found dead, wrapped in plastic in the closet of her Bustleton home. Tonight, we're told her husband is part of that investigation. This is...
You took the bet, Torchy.
Sheba Russell. Police say she was reported missing just days before they discovered her body. Our Shawnette Wilson has more from police headquarters.
Police had been out to that home several times in the past few days. We now know that the woman's husband is charged with abuse of a corpse, and police say more charges could come, depending on what more the investigation reveals.
Serious, sir. Good evening.
Neighbors say this home security camera video shows 61-year-old Lola Carabeva pulling up to her Northeast Philly home just after 2:30 Saturday morning. Then you see her going to the door of the house. Neighbors say it was the last time they would see her.
Sadness.
He wrapped her in plastic, so that could be it, or he could have raped her.
It happened.
Philadelphia police say the next day around 12:30, the morning of Sunday, October 13th, they were called about a missing person at the home on the 900 block of Diplomat Place in Bustleton. They say witnesses told them they hadn't seen Carabeva since around 2:30 the morning before. Then on Wednesday, investigators returned to the home, making a horrific discovery.
I've lived here for 9 years, so I've never heard any screaming.
Any finagling post-mortem.
But it's
yeah, just wrapping her in plastic and putting her in the closet would classify.
That neighbor, who doesn't want to be identified, is talking about police finding Carabeva's body wrapped in plastic inside a closet in her home. Police arrested her husband, 65-year-old Vladimir Leshevsky. Right now, he's charged with abuse of a corpse.
I did not talk too much with Vladimir. It's her husband. He's a little bit crazy.
Michael says he's known the couple for 17 years. He says Carabeva was from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. He said she had been on vacation in Europe before this happened.
She was a great person, very friendly.
Yeah, she looks sweet.
Right now, this is a death investigation, but the police department's homicide
She's from Uzbekistan.
Reporting outside police headquarters, Shawnette Wilson, Fox 29 News.
Yeah, I bet she could cook some awesome food. Probably like a sweet grandmother. Her husband's a piece of shit. This happened around Detroit. Going to Michigan. A young girl was able to escape and get help after facing stranger danger.
Lauren, tell us what happened here.
Taryn Roof, they say it was a terrifying scene, terrifying situation, not just for the two young girls, but also for the mom. And the mom tells us, though, she is just grateful that the girls were quick on their feet, literally.
I am so proud of those girls. So proud of them that they had the foresight to do that.
This mother in Livonia applauding the bravery of two of her daughter's friends who recently ran to her home for help.
Sunday night was pretty ugly looking outside and rainy and cold, and all of a sudden there was a pounding on my front door.
A pounding that made the mom run to the door.
To hear that kind of sound and it being, you know, it was getting dark and it's rainy and cold and yeah, I mean, it just gave me chills. I'm like, what in the world? Who's coming here? You know, it makes no sense. It was, you know, around 6 o'clock at night.
She says it was her daughter's friends, a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old.
They were kind of hysterical. They said there was a white van that said fluid something on it with Oregon plates. The guy got out and asked for their phone number.
She says it happened near the intersection of 7 Mile and Loveland, and they believe the guy might be some sort of delivery driver. Elizabeth says her sons and husband went out looking for him as she called police.
I called 911 right away. Yeah, and then their mom and said, I have the police coming, and she goes, I'm going to come pick them up right now.
She says within minutes, the police arrived.
He was out of that car and in handcuffs so fast, I couldn't believe it. And they just said he is a really bad guy. It is so good that he is off the street. Macomb wants him really bad. There's a ton of warrants for him.
Fox 2 reached out to Missing in Michigan, an organization that deals with these kinds of cases. They applauded the girl's efforts and
amazing the cops did their job right.
Directions or information, be aware that it's inappropriate for them to be asking for help. Also, talk to your kids about a safety plan. Run them through scenarios of what to do in this same situation. And if this does happen, make sure you contact your local law enforcement. Even if you're not sure of the intent, it may be of interest and you're better to report it. Fortunately, in this case, the friends are home safe. The mom who helped them hopes everyone will learn from their bravery.
And it's scary because it's getting darker earlier. And, you know, my daughter walks home from the bus stop by herself. And, you know, I hope she does the same. I pray she does the exact same thing that these girls did.
Now, that mom in particular just saying that.
And or to Washington, what are you talking about?
Awareness, keeping their head on a swivel, looking around at all times. And that's what she recommends everyone does and learns from their story. Reporting live here in Livonia, Lauren Edwards, Fox 2 News.
Yes, and to think they weren't looking at their phones at the time, because that's always a big thing with kids that age. And then it's just so important.
What?
It shows that the parents of those girls obviously spoke.
Be glad they weren't on their phones or they might have got abducted. What?
To them about what to do if they are stuck in a situation or put in a very dangerous situation like that, and they were able to apply it.
She wanted to yell at the cloud.
Their instinct and get out of there.
In the middle of doing the news.
You know, I think the big thing in this story is that the girls immediately knew something was wrong and they booked it. They left, they got out of that situation before anything could potentially happen. And again, when I spoke with Missing in Michigan, they said do exactly that, get out of these situations and let law enforcement know.
Well, in most situations don't narc, but like in that one, yeah. And I'm amazed the police did their job. That is very rare. Here we go, New York, where police are searching for a woman accused. A woman! We've got a woman accused of carjacking an Uber and beating a driver. Go, lady! Be gay, do crime. But don't assault workers.
This next story, it played out like a scene in a video game. An Uber driver rolling down 86th Street in Queens when out of nowhere, a woman throws open the passenger door, punches the driver, and knocks him right out of the car before speeding away.
The surreal scene played out in a matter of seconds. The jarring encounter captured by a dash cam. Cell phone video.
Well, it is spooky season.
By Eyewitness News. Shows the aftermath, and now the hunt is on for the attacker. Eyewitness News reporter Darla Miles live in Bel Air with the latest on the investigation. Darla?
Hey, Darla.
Sandra and Bill, we have reported on passengers who have assaulted Uber drivers, and perhaps Uber drivers or rideshare drivers assaulting their passengers. But as you mentioned, Bill, we've never had a third party jump into an Uber, a rideshare vehicle, and create havoc and chaos while that driver is driving. Look at all of the damage that was caused. You can see a car that was damaged, and when the suspect jumped into the car, she drove off so fast, sped away so fast, there's a tree stump over there. She knocked that down.
A deranged woman attacked one of our members, attacked one of the Uber drivers.
Not much is known about this woman, seen here jumping into the passenger seat of a moving SUV like she's in an action movie, just before viciously attacking an Uber driver.
We understand that she was not the passenger and he was not the intended target, but unfortunately, he was brutally attacked.
Police say it happened last Thursday around 11 p.m. when this woman randomly jumped into an Uber that was picking up another passenger on 241st Street in the Bel Air section of Queens. She started beating up the driver, biting the 52-year-old in his back,
biting,
pushing him out of his car, then taking off.
Some people pay for that shit.
Crashed it into numerous cars, bit and injured and fought the driver, threw him out the car. She wasn't normal.
Uber issuing a written statement.
She wasn't normal.
What this driver endured is nothing short of terrifying. We've been in touch with him and have reached out to offer support.
We are asking Uber as an organization to give this driver a temporary vehicle so that he can continue supporting his family.
The carjacking leaving
Uber ain't gonna do that.
in the front yard of this Queens home. The passenger side door of this SUV crumpled and smashed in, and broken pieces of the Uber scattered all across the lawn. This all came from.
Good night, Lenny.
This one, I think this one.
Wait, that's a big piece of the. What? This is the trunk? Or the hood?
Maybe hood.
The hood of the car.
I mean, if you don't have people coming at you and attacking you,
The 52-year-old Uber driver
what kind of a spooky season is it?
to the hospital and has since been released. I spoke with him briefly on the phone today. Again, only minor injuries for that Uber driver. As for the woman in the surveillance video, please, if you recognize her or know anything about this incident, call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-577-TIPS. Reporting live in Bel Air, Queens, Darla Miles, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Darla, what a crazy story. Thank you.
How'd she do all that and get away? Ooh, I can't wait to get an update on that one. That was amazing. All right, we're gonna go to Colorado where this story has a twist. Let's see how the news sets it up. So we talked about a bank robbery the other night. This was a heist in Colorado. Good old-fashioned heist.
A man who was once an All-American with eyes on the NFL just got out of jail after a meticulously planned armed robbery. I was going to score him more than $1 million in cash.
Your investigator Brian Moss spent months looking into this heist and learned the only reason it fell apart is because $1 million weighs a lot more than you might think.
Rebel County Sheriff's Office! Police! If you steal $1.2 million in cash and use a gun, come out with your hands up! This is the response you can expect. Sheriff's Office, you in there?
And they had planned this for 6 months. They even knew the exact day to hit when the most amount of money was going to be coming in.
I was just robbed at gunpoint at my place of work.
It was December 1st, 2021, when this cash transport company in Arapahoe County was hit. They collect cash from marijuana businesses around the state, then bring it.
Yeah, another reason for federal legalization.
Maybe a 22, and he cocked it. And we have a ton of cameras in this garage. It will all be on camera.
And it was all on tape. The heist recorded by half a dozen cameras. The transport van, stuffed with money, pulls in. A lone gunman dressed head to toe in black, wearing a mask and gloves, walks in after. He catches the delivery driver by surprise and holds her at gunpoint, forcing her to put over $1.2 million cash into 2 garbage bags. He struggles with the bags, but then runs off into the night.
Man, I thought I was tired.
Right? Nothing like this to wake you up.
It was orchestrated perfectly. He knew exactly what he was doing. The way he entered into the garage, the way he went around the van, the way he contacted the victim, the way he ordered the victim around. I mean, it went like clockwork because he knew exactly what to do.
Arapahoe County Sheriff Sergeant Brett Kahn oversaw the investigation.
Every square inch of his body was covered in black.
Who was that gunman who tried so hard to conceal his identity? Turns out the 35-year-old man behind the mask was Devin Aguilar, who'd been a star football player at Colorado's Mullen High School, where he was a second-team All-American.
Quick throw, Aguilar, the catch.
He went on to star at the University of Washington, setting records for catches and receiving yards.
The extra contact afterwards.
Aguilar got NFL tryouts, including with the Tennessee Titans, although he was never picked up. But how did Aguilar know so much about this business and the piles of cash that he'd find?
You don't know anybody that might have been involved in the robbery, right?
No.
They didn't know?
Aguilar had an intimate relationship with Fawn Hoya, she said. She was the transport business's lead teller, who repeatedly lied to investigators.
There's
this
robbery that he would have only obtained from somebody that works here, and that is you.
But faced with evidence of her involvement, Hoya eventually flipped on Aguilar, allowing investigators to listen in on a phone call.
They know that it's you.
Don't worry about it. Just let it play out.
It's a 100% inside job.
Investigators say Aguilar's planning.
Well, it had to be.
The notes police later recovered from Hoya's phone might have worked, except for one thing.
He couldn't carry the money. It was too heavy for him. They didn't calculate the weight.
You see, $1,224,785.35 in cash is a heavy lift.
But you can see money back there. Yeah, look at that.
Unable to carry the cash, the 6'1", 190-pound Aguilar dropped it 700 yards from the business.
Does it look like there's a bunch of it in there? Oh, yeah. They're full.
And the gloves he was wearing that night to protect his identity, he stashed them inside the trash bags.
You left your gloves, dumbass.
But how would they know that's me?
They were placed in the bag and they were sent off, and we got a DNA hit.
Anything else you want us to grab?
The DNA on the gloves matched with Aguilar, who was also wanted for a burglary in Adams County. He'd later plead guilty to theft and armed robbery for this heist. Prosecutors asked the judge to give Aguilar 15 to 20 years in prison. Instead, Judge Joseph Whitfield sentenced the former football star to 1 year in county jail and 8 years probation. He served 7 months and was released September 2nd.
We're disappointed in the sentencing.
For armed robbery?
But we believe the suspect deserved, and we do not believe that the victims got the justice that they deserved.
Khan says the female victim has severe anxiety and will be traumatized for the rest of her life.
People are always going to break the law.
That's kind of wild.
Always going to do things dumb.
Fawn Hoya pled guilty to armed robbery and was sentenced to 6 months in jail and 6 years probation.
Brian did speak with Devin Aguilar's lawyer, who indicated he was not interested in talking about this case or his sentence.
Bullshit. Amazing. 3 to 5 years is probably the right range for armed robbery. And like, I thought they gave people like 10 to 20 years for that shit. That dude was a former football star. This dude was an ex-Olympic snowboarder. He was among 16 people charged in a drug trafficking ring, which to me sounds like he was doing the Lord's work. Couldn't be charged with any fucking shit. He's doing what we need.
Here in California, federal prosecutors say they have busted a major drug trafficking ring that peddled tons of cocaine in the United States and Canada.
They say the ringleaders, including a former Olympian, were also ruthless killers. KTLA's Carlos Salcedo joins us live from
just hitting the slopes.
Carlos.
Mike and Sher, the LAPD helped make some of these arrests possible. The men face federal charges, including murder and attempted murder. The alleged ringleader, an Olympian from Canada.
Well, I don't condone murder.
El Jefe.
El Jefe.
These are the men accused of being part of a violent transnational drug trafficking crime ring. The alleged drug lord, Ryan Wedding, an Olympic athlete.
Ryan Wedding previously was an Olympic athlete for Canada. But instead of using the privileges that come with being an Olympic athlete to do good for people, he did the opposite. He chose to become a major drug trafficker, and he chose to become...
He was doing good for people.
And international authorities announced the arrest Thursday morning, charging 16 individuals with transporting massive amounts
Ducky, good evening.
From Colombia through Mexico into the U.S. and Canada.
I firmly believe this represents a major victory.
Ponder Muggy.
Battle against organized crime and the illicit drug trade. The individuals behind this network have been a persistent threat to Canada and our allies for a number of years.
Investigators say
a persistent threat.
Criminal enterprise became one of the largest suppliers of cocaine into North America over the last 13 years, moving on average 60 tons of cocaine per year. and anyone who got in their way was killed in cold blood.
All of these victims were intentionally shot execution style, so that their loved ones could see them murdered.
The arrests have disrupted operations of Mexican cartels, but there are still 4 fugitives.
I mean, that might be one of those things where it's cruel but fair.
Offering a reward up to $50,000 for any information leading to his arrest and extradition.
And capturing El Jefe.
I'd rather have this guy instead of Jordan Peterson. We'll trade Jordan Peterson.
Face life in federal prison. Reporting live in Westwood, Carlos Salcedo, KTLA 5 News.
All right, I had a couple more stories, but I'm going to ditch them for the night. Since it's a Friday night, I didn't want to do more than an hour of news after the debate. So I hope you enjoy getting caught up on everything. We've got a police chase we're going to watch. Curiouser, did you see my Halloween decorations? What do you think? Does everybody enjoy? This one's kind of a pain in the ass because of the fire inside of the pumpkin. But I go all out for the holiday decorations. I kind of want to do another one. I kind of want to do a whole other intro and background and rotate between the two. Girl to Gray, good evening. Not too spooky. Be sure to show up for the intro sometime. This is about the perfect pumpkin carving time. Maybe a little on the early side still. Maybe the 20th is when you really want to carve your pumpkin. They don't last a long time. I saw this story about a pumpkin that was put on top of a school's steeple. They left it there for like 6 months. They thought it would just rot and go away, but it didn't. Drake, are you still here? Because I need you to be here. I need you to see this. That we are going to Philadelphia for a car chase. It didn't happen in LA. This happened yesterday. Damn it, Greg. Well, I didn't even think about that, M-Lord. We're usually just getting our first small frosts in October. Maybe by the last week, yeah, it might have frosted hard. Maybe she didn't want you to hijack the pumpkin contest. That's why she didn't bring it home. Do I know Greg from... I feel like there's more than one Greg from Canada. Prometheus. Does he know the Muffin Man? Old Greg. Ooh, pulling some evasive maneuvers here to get around traffic. Was it really old Greg? Was that who you were talking to? He wears plaid shirts. Are they already trying to pull a maneuver on him? Whoa, squeezing in between cars. We do not have a speedometer, but it seems like they're at least going 60, 70, 80. They're going around vehicles, but clearly the vehicles around them know that there's a chase. Because there were several pigs riding behind the car. Using their turn signal. Energy Flow, good evening. How you gonna leave during a police chase? This is the best part of my show. I don't know exactly what time this took place. It might have been around 11 or midnight, maybe. I feel like it was after the stream last night. Yeah, this is very recent. Within the last 24 hours. The last fucking blockbuster. There are several videos about it. So recent that we haven't watched this one yet. I sent last night's chase to Sparkles. The exact moment when I get called out on having watched it before. He got a kick out of it. Apparently Philadelphia needs somebody to sit in their helicopter and call commentary. I could absolutely do that for you. Woo! They're driving in the wrong lane currently. Oh, goes between two cars. They have been incredibly reckless. They put their headlights on. This is in Philly. Car is slowing down in front of him. He's gonna attempt to, oh, he's gonna make a right here. Once again, getting held up by traffic. This is in Philadelphia. It's okay, Torchy. I probably need to get more high. Let me try to get on your level. Light one up, tip one back. What is it? Did they pull into a residential area? Is this a cul-de-sac? It's Tennessee Road. They have pulled in somewhere. Have they parked? Are they not aware that there is a camera on them? They think they've gotten away from the cops. I am riveted. Well, they got like the door open now. You do get really pruny in a bath. I like to not take baths. I like to lay down in a shower in a bathtub. I do some of my best thinking in the bathtub. They were on the run. And Maynard usually gets up on the side of the bathtub, hangs out with me. It's a fun time. That cat seen me naked pretty much more than anybody. And milk. You want it below or pasteurized? Get it above my titties. I'll splash it up on my face. Send funds to Maynard. He needs support. Because he's seen me naked so many times. Buy Tool's new reissue of Undertow for $400 fucking dollars. Because Maynard needs more money. Oh, Prometheus hit the lurker love. Professor Q's in here. Commented before I got around to it. Umaro 4321. You're our lurker love of the day. You don't need to say anything to us. We just wanted to give you a shout out. Show some love to the lurkers watching the show. We're glad to have you here. Professor Q commented like right as I was getting ready to shout them out. I have no idea what was hey, good lurkin. What you got, Kurgan? Figured with you would be a gherkin. Is this them, or are they just walking casually? Is this a meth RV? Oh, you can have your knees in, or you can have your boobs in. Not both. Deep and long.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me.
I will probably sneeze another 7 or 8 times. Just letting you know. Kind of a thing I do. I do it almost daily, if not multiple times a day, and it kind of sucks. What causes someone to sneeze in succession like that? I've done it all my life, too. It's not like a recent thing. It's not like an allergy thing. Weed causes it? Well, I didn't smoke when I was a kid. You want a hippopotamus for Christmas. Are they in the RV? They're hiding under the RV. Did they get under it? So they never came out the other side. Okay. Keep on down to the resolution of this if they're just hiding under an RV. Is that a cop or is that just somebody with some light in their vehicle? Because clearly the TV station knows what's up. I wonder if this is attached to a police helicopter. Silly, of course, not having chases all the time where they have a reporter that's in the helicopter just manning the battlefield the way they do in LA. Thought we might have had an undercover there, but I think that's just somebody going home. As I'm surprised that they have a helicopter. It might be the police helicopter. They just got access to the camera. But here we go. Here's the popo. Not even gonna put your lights on? Just stop in the middle of the fucking road? Seems kind of dangerous, especially at night. Fucking cops. I think they have a suspect, at least one of them. Oh yeah, fuck Philly cops. Okay, this might not be Philly PD. This might not be Philadelphia. We get you the local news hit on exactly what happened. They got all the details. Yeah, this is from earlier today. This is a multi-state chase, apparently.
Video you will only see here on NBC 10. You're watching two armed robbery suspects lead police on a chase from Philadelphia to Camden. Only Skyforce 10 captured both this chase and the arrest.
So they're in Camden, New Jersey there.
Live along Delaware Avenue with how all of this started, Siobhan.
Brenda, Philadelphia police say they were chasing the car after an armed robbery. Officers here in Philly started the chase, but police across the river in Camden, they're the ones who made the arrests. Here's how this all played out. It was around 7 o'clock last night when our chopper spotted the chase on I-76. You can see in the video the black Prius swerving in and out of lanes as police followed behind. Officers pulled off the chase once the car went over the Walt Whitman, crossing into Jersey, but our chopper kept following. Recording from above as two people in the car got out at Tennessee and Merrimack Roads in Camden, ran down the street, and hid under a nearby RV.
It was the TV helicopter that narked on them.
Shortly after, and took both people into custody. We don't know if those people are facing any charges this morning. Again, just that they were wanted in connection to an armed.
I would assume they're facing
The
charges.
story and keep you updated. Reporting live, I'm Siobhan McGurl, NBC 10 News.
Monster Balls! Staffy, good evening. Everyone should go follow Staffy on the YouTube, on the TikTok. I got a chance to watch one of your videos the other day. I hate that, like, you did everything fucking right by the YouTube. And like it fucking, I know exactly the struggle you're going through. You're like it was well liked, it was commented on, like everything was going right for it, but like you just hit like a plateau and YouTube cut you off, right? And it's so much work that it's a full-time job, but it's not enough to fucking pay you enough to fucking do it full time. Fucking hate YouTube. That's what Staffy watching your video, like everything fucking right about this video. And just I bet it like just got cut off at the knees. A medic got stabbed in Philly.
First responder became the victim while on an emergency call in North Philadelphia early this morning. Police say a medic was stabbed by the very patient he was trying to help. Annie McCormick live now at police headquarters. What we know about this terrifying incident today. Annie?
Yeah, and Brian, that medic still remains in the hospital in serious condition. He's been doing this for almost a decade. He's been on the job as a medic for 9 years. He's 40 years old. And at this hour, police say that the suspect...
Once I get back doing the freak show, you'll have to come on co-host with me one night.
Unit noticed a tussle occurring in the back. He immediately pulled over to render assistance.
It was here at 22nd and Diamond when the driver of Medic 50's two-man crew realized his partner was in danger when a patient became violent.
When he opened the door to check on what was going on, the male fled on foot.
Inside, his partner was bleeding from stab wounds. The patient, now turned suspect, bolted. Medic 50, stationed at 15th and Parish, had responded to a call for a sick person at 18th and Ridge. But police say the medic was attacked while they were en route to Temple Hospital.
The medic was...
Is this the same woman that attacked the Uber?
Once in the hand. He may have been bit. At one point in time, we're not...
She bit the Uber driver!
Investigation. The knife that was recovered is in police custody.
The medic immediately rendered aid to his partner and called 911. Police found the suspect running southbound near 23rd and Norris.
Oh, they found the suspect.
In custody, they found a knife. This morning's violence comes less than a week since 3 nurses were struck by a car fleeing police.
Yeah, that one was wild too.
Shot wound victim in the ER bay at Penn Presbyterian Hospital.
Maximum force, maximum freaking.
Around 1,000 runs per day. It's standard procedure to have 2 medics respond to a call.
It is unfortunate because first responders, what we do every day is
rate his mustache, chat,
to make people's lives better. And it's one of those things that you can't predict.
I'll give it a solid 6.
And like we said, that suspect is in custody. However, the suspect did have injuries or was still sick. That was a sick call, if you remember, that the medic did respond to. So that's
more time. 3 out of 5, Avalon says. I was doing a 6 out of a 10. I feel like a 3 out of 5, 6 out of a 10. That's pretty much an equivalent. Oh, if you do, you do the math on it. That's, got it. Yeah, I can reduce a fraction.
But then you take my 75% chance of winning and then add 66 and 2/3%. I got 141 and 2/3 chance of winning.
I really can't. Wait, it was a race joke? Oh shit! I didn't even get that. That one's got levels. I just thought Avalon was reducing my fraction because I said 6 out of 10. Avalon agreed with me but said 3 out of 5. But it's also could be 3/5 of a person. But fucking levels here. Levels. Not a bad mustache. Yeah, well, wait, look, there was no racism to it, just the reducing the fraction. That's what I thought. But I never assume malice, especially not for my chat. People trying to troll me, maybe. Oh no, I'm not ready to leave. So if you're on Twitch, we're gonna like hang out and listen to music. We'll say goodbye to the podcast and everybody on the YouTube. But like, yeah, I'm not gonna leave you without a puppy story. You know, you're gonna get a puppy story or some cuddly animal.
Dog owner was reunited with her 4-month-old puppy after a man stole the dog at gunpoint.
What?
Police charged Brian Howard with robbery and other charges after they say he held up the woman while she was walking her dog Nola. It happened last Friday in the 200 block of Academy Street in Trenton. Quick work by detectives allowed them to identify Howard and get a search warrant.
Nola is so cute.
They found the dog and the gun used in the robbery.
Well,
search warrant for his home, Academy Street.
It could have levels though, Flo. That's what I like about the joke. Look at that baby. Yeah, I was like, yeah, it's the Troll Patrol. Sorry, the puppy story even involved crime. But look at that face. I can understand why somebody would want to steal that puppy. Can't you? That puppy stole my heart. If you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching on Twitch, stick around. We're going to hang out for a little while. Not too awfully long. I'll dump you off with producer Dave here in like a half hour, 45 minutes or so. If you're watching on YouTube or the podcast, go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I'm JustinFREAKIN. We'll see you Sunday night on the Troll Patrol live.